Welcome back to another episode of Solo Scale. I am your host, Ken Freire, and today I have with me Kathy Van Benthuysen with me. She is the founder of Converlations and Prep Academy. So, Kathy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Ken. I'm excited to talk with you.
Yes, absolutely. And today I prepared Kathy and I'm preparing everybody in the background. Normally my kids are in a tutorial, but I have a few sick kiddos today. So you might hear more noise in the background than normal. But I think Kathy, you and I are going to have a fun conversation. You used to be a teacher, so you're used to the noise of a lot of kiddos
Yes.
quite a bit. So before we get into your origin story, just tell everybody, what is it that you do right now as an entrepreneur?
So when I retired, I came to Converlation, which is a program for schools. It's a curriculum for fifth through eighth grade. And we said, you know what, we want to get something directly to kids. So we have a coaching program called Digital Prep Academy that goes directly to kids. Obviously, the parents have to buy it, but it's for kids.
I love it. So Converlation is specifically for like in schools, working with them. And then
Yes.
Digital Prep Academy is like, hey, you're going direct to consumer, which is going to be the child, and
Yes.
prepping them. It's a coaching program. I'm assuming
So
some curriculum.
before they get a phone or before they get social media, we coach them through the ins and outs of technology.
Okay, which is a big deal these days because if I remember correctly, I saw some documentaries back in the past. I'm pretty strict on phone and technology use with my kids, but I mean the epidemic of so many kids watching or falling into depression, anxiety, sexting, falling into sexual things that they shouldn't be watching, all starts because they're on their phone and don't have the proper understanding of how to use it. Is that kind of the stuff that you prep them for?
Yes, because when you think about how we grew up with,
Yeah.
there wasn't really social media. This is really new in the sense in the past 15 years or so. And so when we were growing up, it was, go outside, come home when the streetlights come on.
Yeah.
And now, because of all of this technology, we are actually overprotecting our kids in the real world because we're tracking them. We're not letting them go outside. And if you look at it, actually, the real world is actually safer than it's ever been. And then we're underprotecting them in the digital world, which is actually where they need more protection. Where you had just said they're seeing pornography, they're faced with comparison and sextortion and FOMO and all of these things that actually can impact their entire lives. And that's something that we just hand over and we say, oh, you know what, they'll be fine. Everyone else is doing it. And it's not something where I was talking with my oldest last night and I was saying that we haven't changed as humans. We're really not that much smarter. Yes, we have more technology, but we haven't changed that much. We still need people in our lives. We still need connections. We still need relationships. And yet all of this technology has pushed us and divided us further, and we can't handle it. No child should be expected. I mean, when she and I were talking last night, I had said, you know what, think about growing up. When I was growing up, if I wasn't invited to a party, because I was not invited to every party, I would hear about it maybe on Monday in the lunchroom, maybe at recess. And then that was kind of it. Now you're not invited to a party. It's all over social media. Everyone's talking about it and you can't get away from it. So now you're not just hearing about it when you're actually with people, you're inundated with all this information all the time. And we cannot handle that amount of input. And yet we're expecting kids to be able to, oh, they'll be fine. They'll be okay. Just, don't worry about it or ignore it, but they can't because it's constantly coming at them from all directions.
Yeah. And I can imagine, I remember feeling that comparison that you were talking like, oh, I didn't get to invited to that party. Well, a week later it dies down. Here it's like the onslaught over and over and over again. And I even love the comparison that you were talking about, like for adults. I think about social media in general with all the vast information we hear today. whether political, non-political, world news, just catastrophes all over the world, we're not even supposed to take in all that information. It's almost like we're overstimulated and overwhelmed by it, that we don't know how to actually communicate or handle that much pressure. But then, like you said, how are we supposed to let a child take care of themselves with all the stuff that we're giving them? And you talked about it, like we're under preparing them at an early age. So what are you doing now? What are you training people in, and how do you prepare either kids or the ages 8 to 14? How are you preparing them?
So one of the things that I hear a lot is, I don't want my child to be left out. Everyone is getting a phone. It's a rite of passage. You turn 12, you turn 10, actually, because the average age of getting a cell phone now, a smartphone, is 10.3 years old. And so parents look around and say, well, everyone else is doing it. It must be fine. And we're telling people it's not fine. And you need to prepare your child. And I get it that parents are like, well, how do we do that? And that's why we developed Digital Prep Academy. So we kind of focus on 4 areas on responsibility. So for example, do you make your own breakfast and lunch? This is the kid making their own breakfast and lunch, not the parent doing it for them. Do they make their own breakfast and lunch? Do they take care of their things? Because if they can't do those things, then they're not ready for a phone. The second one that we focus on is emotional maturity. How do they handle when they're told no? Do they have a meltdown? How do they handle being left out? Do they shut down? Because again, if they can't handle those things, a phone is just going to exacerbate that. Then the next thing we focus on is digital awareness. Do they know about dopamine and how tech companies are using their algorithms to create that constant hit of, oh, I need to be looking. I need to, how many hearts, how many likes do I have? Do they understand about attention engineers? Because if they can't explain what's happening, they can't fight against it. And the fourth part that we focus on is character. Character. Are you a person of integrity? Do you do what you're supposed to be doing when no one's looking? And so the program helps with all 4 of those, because it's an overall picture of what we need to be able to use phones well. And I laugh. So it's a readiness check. Are you ready for a phone? And that's what we just call it, the phone readiness check. And there's one about social media. And the parent takes it and they evaluate their child. And then the child, and it's written in for a kid language there, the child takes it and they assess their own in emotional maturity, digital awareness, responsibility, and character. And then they get a score. No one can pass it. I mean, I don't think most adults could pass it if they were being honest. And then the parent and child can compare scores. And then we don't say, oh, well, look, you failed it. Then we say, now we have a path forward. Because unless we teach kids how to use technology as a tool and not just merely entertainment, they're going to go down a path that is not going to allow them to thrive in life later on.
Yeah, I like how you said earlier, most parents or most adults, if they had those 4 criteria, they probably would fail those 4 criteria too. I'm like, yeah, we have a lot less people having smartphones. As you think about this whole process, you've come up with a beautiful framework. Walk us through kind of like the origin. Like, why did you decide, hey, I'm going to jump into this space? You were already teaching. You could have just doubled down on teaching. Mm-hmm. You could have said, hey, there's other people doing this already. Why did you decide, hey, let me jump into Digital Prep Academy?
So I'll go back and I'll tell this story. So every day of my 30-year career, and I taught 4th grade my entire career, I would greet kids at the door and I would say, good morning, Ken, how are you doing today? And I would expect 2 things, eye contact and a response. And my first year teaching, every single student on the first day of school was able to do those 2 things. My last year teaching, one student on the first day of school looked me in the eye and responded. And it was December and I was still telling kids, you need to look me in the eye, you need to respond. And It is a direct result of technology. Kids have gotten so used to having their heads down in devices, and we normalize it. We say, oh, that's just how kids are. And I say, no, it's not. I taught fourth graders, 9 and 10-year-olds for 30 years. That's a long span of time to see the same age group. What changed in those 30 years was the introduction of technology. And that last year, when that one student looked me in the eye and responded, I remember I went home and I said to my husband, I can't sit around anymore. I can't sit around and just hope that this will get better. Now, I had met my business partner. So that last year, my last year teaching, I had met my business partner 3 years prior, and we were working on Converlation, which is a curriculum that's in schools. And I thought, you know what? I really need to retire and get out there and help more kids, because I know that, every year, 30 years, 25 kids, maybe it's 600, 700 with coaching, it's more, but it's still a finite number of kids. And I thought, my gosh, retire and go with Converlation, I can actually impact even more lives. And so that's what I did, is when I thought, you know what, these parents have no idea. We did not grow up with all this technology. So parents don't know what to do. So that's when we said, okay, let's have something in schools, because schools are seeing the repercussions of this. They're seeing the side effects and the unintended consequences of kids' tech use, like the social media, the gaming, the videos outside of school, and then it's coming into school. So we were like, okay, let's develop something that schools, because they're seeing the problem, that they can implement to help kids not become these digital zombies. And when we have schools that are doing it, and, going on 4 years now of it, and it's neat because we have, school where a principal is facilitating the program. We have a resource officer in one school, another school, the teachers are doing it. But it's having those conversations with kids, because what kids normally hear with technology is, okay, well, don't be on your phone while the parent is, scrolling through their own phone. And so the kids are like, okay, well, why? Why can't I? And because parents don't exactly know, like can't answer those questions, we said, okay, let's now develop something that we can help parents. We're not asking parents to go through it, because I get it. We already have enough on our plates. And this is something that a kid can go through and learn about what's happening with technology, because again, this is all relatively new. And I really didn't I've seen people talk, let's get legislation out there. Let's force tech companies to change. Ken, I'm going to tell you, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, that's going to be a long time.
Like,
if it does, it's going to be a real long time.
But how much money do they make? Do we really think they're going to say, you know what? We don't want to harm kids. Let's make it less addictive. They're not going to.
Yeah.
That could be like a whole nother podcast, our thoughts on that. But that's not going to happen. We know that the government, to get legislation in place, we already know how long that takes. And so we said, okay, then who are the ones that can make the change? Who are with the kids the most? Well, parents or schools. So that's why we came up with the two different things where we can have people see that you don't have to just settle for it. As a parent, you don't have to say, oh, well, everyone's doing it. Cell phones are going to be parts of their lives. We'll just hand it over. But it doesn't have to be that way. There is something that you can do to make sure that your kid is prepared to have a phone in their hand and prepared to be on social media.
Yeah. And that's what I appreciate, Kathy, so much about what you're doing, is like you're showing people there can be another way. Let's not assume just because everybody's doing it, right, we should do it. I remember, the old adage back in our day was like, well, if everybody's jumping off a bridge, would you do it? Or jumping off a cliff? It's like, no, I'm smarter than that. But we don't do that when it comes to like parental controls or like thinking about how to use technology. I want us to kind of pivot the conversation a little bit, which I appreciate greatly, of how you've developed your business. or like what you're doing. Walk us through a little bit of like how you're actually growing your business. Cause some people might be like, this might seem pretty hard to do, but from a business standpoint, what's been the biggest strategy you've used to help grow your business?
So, you know what? I think that it's been just so when we tell people what we do, they're like, oh, that's really cool. I've never heard of that. And really, it's not easy. It is being out there and constantly sending the emails, making the phone calls, talking to people about what it is that we have, because I mean, we're on social media, which is funny because we talk about not being on social media, but that's where people are.
Yeah.
So it's just those conversations, Ken. I think that's the biggest way, because when I think about schools, you know, it's a long process, but if we stay with it, if we're constantly talking about it, I had done I remember this, I had done a presentation about having conversation in schools. And 2 years later, someone contacted us and said, I remember that you had talked about this, about bringing it into school. So I kept your brochure, and, we're struggling a little bit. So, we would like to talk to you further. And that was so funny because I was like, wait, that was too, like, I remember meeting the person. I actually remember the conversation where I met her, but it really is, it's about relationships. It's about constantly, not, hi, I'm Kathy, and just start talking about it. But when you're engaging with people, it's having those conversations.
Yeah, what's fascinating is there's a business statistic, and it depends on who you read it from and how much they're exaggerating. But they'll say like 10 to 20% of buyers are ready to buy at any given moment. So there's possibly about 80 people that they're just not ready at that given moment. So it's fascinating that you're like 2 years later, now they're ready. So when they felt that they needed the help. So it sounds like a lot of what you're doing is networking, outreaching. Are you primarily outreaching to schools, or are you just trying to do parents on social media like Facebook, Instagram? Give us a little bit more details of how you kind of flesh that out.
So it's funny that you're saying that, because we, I live in New Jersey. So in New Jersey, they actually the governor just signed bell to bell cell phone ban in schools starting September 2026. And New Jersey had done a report prior to the ban being signed into law. And they said that this is great, like, you want to do this. However, you need to give the kids the why, because if you don't, you're going to be constantly fighting up against it. And we were like, okay, so do we want to focus only on conversation in schools? And we just got a document this morning from someone who is helping us for Digital Prep Academy. So we were like, okay, so which one do we focus on? Do we focus on conversation for schools? I mean, when I tell you, talk to my business partner, and I said, okay, we can't talk about this right now, I have to go and talk with Ken. Or do we focus on Digital Prep Academy? So I'm not even sure, because with schools, the outreach is to the schools, to the PTAs, PTO, PTGs, whatever
Yeah.
parent group is running it, or the education associations in the state. That's what we would focus on. If we were going to parents, the outreach is a little different, because we would be doing it on social media. We would, like, actually, we had said one of the things we want to do is go to offices that have waiting rooms. So, pediatricians, ophthalmologists, it can be anyone that has people where they're sitting and waiting, and then put brochures out that say, hey, you don't want your kid to be able to use a phone well or social media well. You want to prepare them first. And here's something about, go to our website to find out about Digital Prep Academy. So the way that we would market it would be different than if we were going to schools. So I'm not even sure what the answer is, because it's literally this morning. that we were like, okay, so which one are we going? And I was like, so I said to him, his name is John. I go, John, so what am I supposed to tell Ken? Am I talking about Converlation? Am I talking about Digital Prep Academy? He's like, just kind of see
Good
what
luck.
Ken says. So it is like how obviously how we would market it would be different.
Yeah. Well, and it's fascinating because with businesses, it's always one of those interesting things where you have to pivot depending on the situations or circumstances, right? I
Yeah.
do wonder, now we're just having a conversation and brainstorming here, but I do wonder as I hear about Converlation and the new ban in New Jersey, it seems like that ban, while in the out in forward facing, it looks good. Like, oh man, the kids are going to be more focused. It's still just a band aid. They actually
Mhm.
have not been prepped or trained on how to use it correctly. So they're going to go
Mhm.
back home, or as soon as they leave school, they're going to turn their phone on, and they're still underprepared.
Mhm. Mhm. And I,
Um, go for it.
yeah,
What were we
go
going to
ahead.
say? I was just going to say, I still see that. So even if you go through Converlation or Digital Prepper Academy, the messaging is still the same. It's just I can see the school as being more like, oh, well, we don't have to worry about it anymore because we've solved it, quote unquote, in the
Yeah.
schools, but they haven't actually solved the bigger problem.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
seeing right now from this, 20-minute conversation.
Yeah. Because that's actually what we were. It was like you're a fly on the wall in there before we started. Because we were saying is that, but see, the thing with schools, you didn't see the document, but the document was saying like, it's not enough just to ban it. You have to give the kids the why, and that's what we've said forever with Converlation is when it's in schools, it gives the kids the why. Why are adults saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be on your phone all the time," and we give them the why. We explain all of the stuff that we had talked about earlier to help kids see that, you know what, these devices are amazing tools, but we want to be able to control them, not the other way around. But you're right in that that's great for, let's just pretend that it's 6 hours that kids, or even 7 hours that kids don't have phones, but then they have the other 18. So how is that? That's plenty of time for a child to become addicted to their devices. So uh, yeah, I am not sure because I don't know if the schools can just say, "Oh, phew, it's already taken care of," because it's not. It's not taken care of because kids still are going to be able to have their phones. And then we say, okay, well, is it then the parents' job? But parents don't really know how to handle it. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah. Have you guys from a business model, have you guys done any like digital ads or paid ads like Facebook or Google ads or anything like that for this?
No, no, we haven't.
Because this is just my natural instinct. I'd have to like think about it and process it more.
Yeah,
But I wonder if going more to the parents is you're going to have a better shot. Because my natural instinct is you said it earlier. You're like, hey, parents are too overwhelmed and they don't know what to do. But you're coming in and saying, hey, we actually know what to do and we know how to prep them.
yeah,
They're probably more concerned with the preparation side of things than the schools would be, because the schools are like, hey, we're trying to figure out everything else. We're trying to figure out their schooling, their academics. We're
yeah,
trying to make sure they have a certain GPA because they got to get into good high schools and good colleges, blah,
yeah.
blah, blah. I worked in the university for years, so I kind of know the
Okay, okay.
trajectory of the academic world. But you're looking at the holisticness of a person and saying they might have all the best grades, but they're being destroyed from an
Yeah,
emotional soul level. It won't matter.
yeah. No, absolutely.
So that's what my initial thought is like, oh, would you want to do some sort of ads or more social media, just target parents? But I have to think about that a little bit more. We'll text each other back and forth.
Yeah, I was gonna say, definitely, we definitely need prayer in this because I don't know if we can. I don't know if it would be wise to try to do both because we only have so many resources.
Yeah.
So what do we want to focus on? We do have digital. I mean, we do have Converlation in schools. We're probably in a half dozen. Digital Prep Academy is new. We haven't officially launched it. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, I'd be more than happy to keep that conversation offline, because our
Yeah.
podcast guests might be like, "Oh, we're going too deep into like,"
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
someone might love it. They'll be like, "No, let's have a brainstorming session, a coaching session. We'll make that another episode, like
Yeah.
just us coaching you, me coaching you through guys through this." But it sounds like right now your biggest challenge then is trying to figure out, do you pivot and focus on Converlation or Digital Prep Academy? Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes. Yes, it is. It's because that's exactly what I was going to say was it's where do we focus?
Yeah. Do you if you picked one or the other, maybe here's a good question for like a coaching question that I always ask people is like, if you picked one or the other, which one would you enjoy doing more and putting more of your energy towards?
Huh. That's a really good question. I think if I went with my gut, my heart, it would probably be with schools.
Okay, why is that?
Because, well, obviously, because I taught, because I was in education, and I know that it's one of those things where you have all these kids together and they're all so when you do something in isolation. So, and again, I guess I should be careful if we decide to go towards Digital Prep Academy.
Yeah, sure.
When you're doing something alone, you have to have that conviction that, yes, this is what we want to do. This is going to be really good. But when you're with a group of people and there's 20 of you all going through the same thing and hearing the same information, you can be like, oh, you know what? I know that there's 19 other of my friends that are hearing the same thing. And now I feel almost more emboldened that I can walk this path. Oh, that's so funny because I never thought about which one would have me more excited. I do think it would be schools. Huh.
Okay.
That's interesting.
All right. So we got one step closer. Let me ask one more question. Knowing that there's this legislation about to be passed, schools may pivot a little bit. What would you do to double down on Converlation?
Um. So I would say, okay, yes, it's great that kids aren't going to have access for 6 hours, 7 hours a day. And it's going to help them to be more focused, which absolutely, you're in education, you know that that's what we want for the kids is that they're able to focus and attend to the task. But that still doesn't help them in the big picture because, like we said, when they go home, they're going to have access to it. And then I don't know, it's going to make it worse because they're like, oh, I haven't had it for 6, 7 hours. Now I have to spend all this time on it and get extra videos in and extra gaming in. And I know that, and maybe this is just me, but when I talk, I would say to the kids, like, doesn't matter what I teach you academically, it's not going to matter in 5 years and 10 years if you don't feel safe and cared for and loved now in the moment. I care more about who you are in 10 years and the kind of person you are than whether you know that 8 times 7 is 56 like that. And maybe to say no, like all we're responsible for is the academics, but I would say no. You actually, as a teacher, we spend more time with the kids than they do with their own family. We really do. And my gosh, it's not just about the reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's you're helping to develop that whole person. And that's one of the things that I love is in Converlation for Schools is it talks about the technology part of it, but it also talks about the responsibility and it talks about character. And schools have gone through it. They said, we love that you have character stuff in here because that's so important. I'm not saying that parents don't teach character at home, but again, when you have a whole group of people all together and everyone's learning the same thing and you're having conversations about it, it can be really, really impactful.
Yeah, it's funny because my kids are a great example of why this community aspect is so important. My kids the other day, they came to me and they're like, Dad, my two older ones, they're in a tutorial program. They're together in the same grade. And they're like, Dad, the other kids started talking about kissing and hugging and like all these little things, like who they have crushes on. Mind you, they're like 8 and 7. So I'm like, we're going to have to put a kibosh on this real fast. And we're really involved parents. So I was like, oh, tell me more. Like, who's starting these conversations? What's going on? What's happening? How are you guys responding? And I thought to myself, wow, because all of them are in a little community, whoever's the leader is naturally pulling them to these conversations. And
Mm-hmm.
if the teacher doesn't know about it, right, it's going to be really hard for the teacher to be able to navigate that conversation, right? But just like you're saying, the teacher or whoever is involved, right, knows where they're taking them. And it's, for example, you were saying character,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then, man, all of a sudden you're training all of them like, no, no, this is the character we want. I'll give you one more great example. The teacher, she's been doing life skills for my kids. So they're like, how do you sit at a table? How do you eat dinner? How do you
Yeah.
appropriately use a napkin and fork and all this stuff? And they're like, whoa, like, Dad, you never taught us this. I'm like, what are you talking about? We do it every day. You just forget. But because they were with a group, it all of a
Uh-huh.
sudden stuck more.
And it's not you saying it because I've come on, my kids are 22 and 18 now. And there are things that I would say, and they'd be like, and then they would come home and be like, Mom, guess what Mrs. So and so said? And I'm thinking, I've been saying that. What do you mean you didn't hear me all this time? But they say it one time and it's great. It's perfect. Oh my gosh, Mom. It was so great that she said that. And I'm like, because they hear it differently. When it's not mom or dad, they just hear it differently when it comes from a teacher, a coach, someone else that we were entrusting them to.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, I think you and I can talk a lot about this. I'm passionate because I have young kids and I want my kids to be the best. And I think a lot of parents want that too. But I want us to go through our fast five questions quickly here as we wrap up and then find ways for people to still connect with you.
Okay.
So, question number one, and this is again for those who are listening, I'm doing a trend report for entrepreneurs to figure out what's working and what's not working. So, question number one is this: what's something in your business you're experimenting with right now?
Um, where we're hoping to do is get affiliates to come on and help get the message out. And that's not, to me, that's a little, not scary, but having, asking other people to come on and saying like, okay, if people get the program because of you, we're going to pay so much. That part doesn't scare me. It's just finding people who want to be affiliates. So that's something that we've never done before. And that's something that we're going to be trying.
Great. And to be clear for the affiliates, are you doing just local or are you also open to national?
Oh, we're open to national.
Okay, cool. Question number two: which part of your business feels the most influx or confusing these days? Which we already kind of talked about, but you could reiterate it.
Yeah, I was going to say it's what do we focus on? What part do we focus on? Because I feel like we go down this path and then all of a sudden something else comes along and we say, oh, there's something shiny over here. And then, but is that the direction that we need to go? And so it's what are we focusing on? That's the hard part.
Perfect. Question number three: what's a goal you're building toward this year that you're really excited about?
It's that it's growth. It's actually seeing growth, whether it's on the school side or on, the family side, just having people hear about this and then actually doing something, not just saying, oh, it's a great idea, but actually getting the program and doing it, having their child do it or schools doing it so that we're making a difference because it's not enough just to talk about it.
Okay. As you think about your industry, where do you see your industry shifting and how are you preparing for it?
So I would say I I see that we'll just say like in the coaching industry that with AI, I think there is so much out there that can just be fake and not real. And I think people really, really want real connections and real people. And that's something that we want to continue to lean into is, having it's us, like the programs that we do, the things that we talk about, we're the real people talking about it. This isn't, AI Kathy or it's real people. I think in this industry, we don't want to go towards AI or where everything is in technology where we miss that connection with people.
Absolutely. I could talk a lot about that, but I will keep my mouth shut. All right. Last question. What's the legacy that you want to leave behind?
I want, you know, I talk about I remember the first time that I met my business partner. I actually met him through my husband. And he said, I just want to make a difference in kids' lives. And I was 5 years old when I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I taught for 30 years and now I'm in this space. And that has always been my heart. I want to make a difference in kids' lives, that they get to grow up whole and thriving and they have amazing relationships. That's when I want to provide something for kids and people to be able to have those amazing relationships. Because when it comes down to it, that's what life is all about. No one's going to wish, oh, I wish I spent more time on social media. Or I wish I spent more time on my phone. They're going to wish that they spent more time with people. And that's what I want my legacy to be, is that I gave people something that enabled them to have amazing relationships.
You know, Kathy, before we even got on this call recorded, we were talking about our kids and our relationships with our kids and just the deep connection that you want. And you know how you were just talking about relationships. Even you did an exercise with me right before we got on the call, right? And you were just like, hey, let's do this thing real quick. And I saw how deeply you wanted to go into a soul level of our relationship versus just like, okay, let's just hit record, let's move on. Like there's people I talk to all the time that is just like, okay, next. But you're like, no, I really want to make an impact on people. And I thought, wow, Kathy genuinely cares for people. And it shows throughout everything that you're doing with your business. So Kathy, if people resonate with that, just like I did, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and connect with you?
Well, on socials, I'll tell you in a second, but the best way is just Kathy at converlation.com, Converlation. That's my email. That's the easiest way. On social media, I'm on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram and Facebook, or Digital Prep Academy on Instagram and Facebook. And then on LinkedIn, I'm just, Kathy Van Benthuysen.
Yeah.
So that would probably be the easiest way, or just email me.
Perfect. And I'll make sure all that's in the show notes for all of you so you can, and the links is going to be there to easily follow you. Kathy, thank you so much for one. The business that you decided to do in coaching is like, you're trying to make an impact and you're looking upstream and you're like, how do we help grow the next generation? Yeah. Where so many people forget about by the time it's too late. So thank you for that. And thank you so much for this conversation. It's been a blessing to me and hopefully it's been a blessing to those listening to it. Any final words of encouragement for those who are listening to this conversation?
You know what I think my encouragement will be is we get one go around with our kids, and we can't worry about what everyone else is doing. We have to do what's best for our kids. And if you feel in your heart that, something is good or right for your family, don't worry if no one else is doing it. If you know that this is something that is best, then lean into that.
That's a good word, and we'll end there. Kathy, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And for those listening, again, reach out to Kathy on LinkedIn or social media, or check out her email. All of it's going to be on the show notes. Thank you so much, Kathy. Hope you guys have a great day, and God bless.
Thank you.